Picture this. You spend a year in space, you come back to Earth, and your body is not the same one that left. Not temporarily, not for a few weeks while you readjust. Some of these changes stick around for years. Some of them never go away at all. We are talking about permanent biological alterations to the human machine, and NASA has the data to prove it. No intro. Let's get straight into it, starting at number 10. Number 10. Bone density loss that creates a skeleton more fragile than your grandmother's. Astronauts lose approximately 1 to 2% of their bone mineral density for every single month they spend in microgravity. To put that in perspective, elderly people on Earth losing bone mass at the rate of 1% per year are already considered at serious risk for osteoporosis. Astronauts are losing that same amount every 30 days. After a 6-month mission, that is somewhere between 6 and 12% total bone mass gone. Scott Kelly's year-long mission data showed measurable bone density deficits that required extensive rehabilitation. And studies from the NASA Human Research Program confirm that even with aggressive recovery protocols, some astronauts never fully return to their pre-flight baseline measurements. The mechanism here is actually elegant in a terrible way. Your skeleton on Earth is constantly remodeling itself in response to mechanical loading, meaning gravity pulling down on you as you walk, run, and carry weight. Remove gravity, remove the loading signal, and your body interprets your bones as unnecessary infrastructure. Osteoclasts, the cells that break down bone tissue, become overactive. Osteoblasts, the cells that build new bone, slow down significantly. The structural scaffolding of your body begins deconstructing itself. Exercise countermeasures like resistance training on the International Space Station slow the loss considerably, but do not stop it entirely. Number 9. Heart muscle shrinkage that reshapes your cardiovascular system. Your heart is a muscle, and like all muscles, it responds to demand. In space, without gravity, blood distributes differently throughout your body. Pressure gradients change, and the heart simply does not have to work as hard to pump blood upward toward your brain. The result is cardiac atrophy, a measurable shrinkage of heart muscle mass. Studies documented that Scott Kelly's heart volume decreased during his year in space, and some research indicates the heart can become more spherical in shape as it loses mass, which alters how efficiently it pumps blood. The frightening part is what happens when you land. Earth's gravity suddenly demands that your weakened heart push blood upward with much more force than it has been generating for months. Many returning astronauts experience orthostatic hypotension, meaning they stand up and nearly pass out because their cardiovascular system cannot adapt instantly. Countermeasures involving high-intensity cardiovascular exercise aboard the station help, but the structural changes to heart shape and mass do not reverse quickly. Some long-duration astronauts show cardiac changes that persist for months after return. Number 8. Vision damage from intracranial pressure changes that can become permanent. This one shocked researchers when they first confirmed the scale of it. A documented condition called spaceflight-associated neuroocular syndrome, or SANS, affects a significant proportion of astronauts on long missions. The mechanism involves fluid shifts in microgravity. Without gravity pulling fluids downward, cerebrospinal fluid accumulates in the upper body and skull, increasing intracranial pressure. That increased pressure pushes against the back of the eyeball, causing the optic nerve to swell and the eyeball itself to physically flatten at the rear. MRI data from astronauts after 6-month missions showed optic nerve sheath distension, flattening of the posterior globe, and in some cases, the development of new folds in the choroid tissue of the eye. Several astronauts returned from long missions with permanently reduced visual acuity. Some needed prescription glasses for the first time in their lives after spaceflight. The truly alarming aspect is that no effective countermeasure currently exists. Researchers are investigating artificial gravity and altered carbon dioxide levels as potential interventions, but as of current published NASA data, SANS remains one of the most serious unresolved health risks for deep space missions. Number 7. DNA changes and telomere shifts that may speed up cellular aging. A well-known twin-based space research study revealed one of the most surprising discoveries in human space science. One twin spent nearly a year aboard a space station, while the other remained on Earth as a comparison. During the mission, the space travelers' telomeres, protective caps at the ends of chromosomes, actually became longer, which first appeared beneficial. However, after returning to Earth, their length rapidly decreased, dropping below pre-mission levels and below the Earth-based twin. This suggests a possible accelerated aging effect linked to the stress of space travel and readjustment to gravity. In addition, gene activity shifted. About 7% of genes showed changes after the mission, with some differences still present even years later. These changes involved systems like immunity, DNA repair, and bone health. Exposure to space radiation can also directly affect DNA, causing damage at levels much higher than on Earth. While spacecraft shielding reduces some exposure, it cannot fully prevent it, and there is currently no complete solution to reverse long-term genetic effects from extended missions. Number 6. Changes in the gut microbiome that reshape your internal balance. Space travel can disrupt the complex community of microorganisms living in the human digestive system. This internal ecosystem plays a major role in digestion, immunity, and overall health. In microgravity and confined environments, the balance of these microbes can shift, potentially affecting how the body functions over time. Your gastrointestinal tract contains approximately 38 trillion microbial cells, and the composition of that community influences everything from your immune function to your mood, your metabolism, and your cognitive performance. Space travel disrupts this community in ways researchers are still mapping. Microgravity, radiation exposure, altered diet, stress hormones, and even the closed-loop air circulation systems aboard the ISS all contribute to shifting the bacterial populations in your gut toward configurations that would be considered unhealthy by Earth-based standards. Studies of astronauts before, during, and after missions showed significant shifts in the ratio of key bacterial phyla, with some beneficial bacterial populations declining and potentially harmful ones expanding. The immune system dysregulation that results from these microbiome shifts means astronauts have measurably altered immune responses both during and after missions. Probiotic interventions and dietary protocols have shown limited effectiveness in stabilizing the microbiome during spaceflight. What makes this particularly concerning for future missions is that the gut microbiome is not simply inconvenient to disrupt. It underpins fundamental physiological processes, and restoring it after return to Earth can take months or longer depending on the individual. Number 5. Muscle atrophy that goes deeper than simple wasting. You might expect muscles to waste away in zero gravity. That part is obvious, but the specific character of muscle loss in space goes beyond simple size reduction. Astronauts lose both muscle volume and the proportion of slow-twitch muscle fibers, which are the fatigue-resistant fibers critical for maintaining posture, balance, and sustained physical activity. Data from NASA's Human Research Program indicates that without aggressive countermeasures, astronauts can lose up to 20% of their muscle mass on a 6-month mission. Even with the current exercise protocols on the ISS, which consume roughly 2 hours of every astronaut's day, some muscle fiber type conversion still occurs. The mechanism involves both disuse atrophy from lack of mechanical loading and alterations in anabolic hormone, signaling that suppress muscle protein synthesis in the microgravity environment. Returning astronauts require rehabilitation programs measured in months, and some research suggests that the shift in muscle fiber composition may take longer to reverse than simple mass recovery. For elderly astronauts or individuals with compromised recovery capacity, some of these changes could represent lasting functional limitations. Number 4. Fluid redistribution that permanently restructures your sense of equilibrium. From the moment of entering weightlessness, approximately 2 liters of fluid shift from your lower body into your chest and head. This creates the classic puffy-faced, bird legs appearance you see in space mission photographs, but the consequences extend far beyond aesthetics. The vestibular system, which is your inner ear balance apparatus, relies on fluid dynamics and gravity sensing to orient your body in space. In microgravity, those gravity-sensing organs essentially stop receiving meaningful input and begin to rewire their neural connections. This vestibular rewiring is so significant that many astronauts experience profound disorientation, nausea, and balance dysfunction upon return to Earth. Their brains have adapted to a world without gravity gradients, and readapting to a 1G environment requires substantial neurological recalibration. Some long-duration astronauts report that certain aspects of their balance and proprioceptive function remain subtly altered for many months after return. The neuroplasticity driving this process means the brain is genuinely restructuring itself in ways that have measurable effects on motor control and spatial orientation. Number 3. Cognitive function changes and structural brain alterations that persist after landing. Multiple studies have now documented that spaceflight produces measurable changes to brain structure. MRI imaging performed before and after long-duration missions shows shifts in the position of brain tissue, increases in cerebrospinal fluid volume in certain regions, and, in some cases, changes to white matter integrity and connectivity pathways important for motor function. These findings are not subtle. They are visible on standard clinical imaging. The cognitive consequences include documented declines in spatial orientation tasks, motor coordination, and certain types of processing speed in the period immediately after landing. Research published in collaboration with NASA's Human Research Program tracked astronauts for up to a year after their missions and found that while significant recovery occurred, some structural brain changes remained detectable at the 12-month follow-up point. For a mission to Mars, which would involve approximately 3 years of total travel time, the cumulative neurological impact of this level of exposure is one of the most serious unquantified risks in current space medicine research. No established pharmaceutical or exercise countermeasure has been shown to prevent brain structural changes during long spaceflight. Number 2. Immune system dysregulation that makes you vulnerable in ways that may not fully recover. Space travel does something deeply strange to the human immune system. It simultaneously suppresses some immune functions while pushing others into hyperactivation, creating a state of immunological confusion that persists throughout missions and into the recovery period. Latent viruses like Epstein-Barr virus, varicella zoster, and cytomegalovirus reactivate in astronauts' bodies during spaceflight, shedding in saliva and urine at rates significantly higher than Earth-based controls. This is not a minor finding. These are viruses that healthy immune systems on Earth keep permanently dormant. The stress of spaceflight combined with radiation exposure and sleep disruption suppresses the natural killer cell activity and T-cell function required to keep these viruses locked down. Meanwhile, inflammatory markers increase. Some astronauts develop skin rashes, upper respiratory infections, and other immune-mediated conditions during missions and in the weeks after return. Longitudinal data from returning astronauts suggests that immune system normalization is a slow process, and that certain immune parameters may not return to pre-flight baselines within the study windows researchers have been able to track. For a Mars mission, an immunologically compromised crew thousands of miles from any medical intervention represents an extraordinary vulnerability. Number 1. The combined cumulative effect that makes you a fundamentally different biological organism. Here's the truth that each of these individual findings points toward. These changes do not occur in isolation. Every single system we have discussed is interconnected. Bone loss affects muscular loading patterns. Fluid shifts drive intracranial pressure that damages vision. Immune dysregulation interacts with gut microbiome disruption. Radiation damages DNA while simultaneously affecting immune cells needed to repair that damage. Cardiovascular atrophy reduces the blood flow efficiency your brain needs to function and recover. Scott Kelly returned from space 1 inch taller than when he left due to spinal disc expansion, and then gradually returned to normal height over weeks. His gut bacteria looked different. His gene expression patterns were altered. His cognitive performance showed measurable changes, and he was only gone for approximately 1 year. A Mars mission crew would face all of these same mechanisms compounding over approximately 3 years or more, with no return option and no access to Earth-based medical care. Some of what space does to a human body can be reversed with time and intensive rehabilitation. But the data we have right now is unambiguous on one critical point. Some of it cannot. The human body evolved for one specific gravitational environment, one specific radiation shield, and one specific microbial ecosystem. Remove any of those parameters for long enough, and the biological consequences accumulate in ways that are permanent. Space exploration is the greatest adventure our species has ever undertaken, and this is the biological price of admission that no one talks about enough. If you want to understand the science behind the next frontier of human exploration, subscribe right now so you do not miss the next video.